Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Digital Service Squad webinar. I'm Ben Frisch, the Digital Service Squad team lead of South Georgian Bay, joined by Kit Redding, who's going to be, you say hi. Kit's going to be taking us through our webinar today, the topic being SEO strategies to drive more website traffic. And if I might just run to the next slide and give a shout out. So the South Georgian Bay Digital Service Squad is managed by the Enterprise Center, the Small Business Enterprise Center. Do you want to hit the next slide for me? Yeah, there we go. So it is managed by the South Georgian Bay Small Business Enterprise Center. And here in South Georgian Bay, we've received some additional funding and support from the County of Simcoe, the town of Collingwood, and the town of Blue Mountains. So I always want to give a shout out and a thanks to our supporting partners to keep this program going and keep the supports coming. So we've got our contact information if you want to get in touch with the squad at the end of this webinar, but that's it for me. I think I'm going to hand it off to Kit to take us through our topic for today.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, this is an exciting topic, and SEO seems to be a buzzword lately with everything going on and changes within Google this past summer, and a lot of people sort of looking at their digital footprint and wondering what they can do to further optimize. So this is a great start for some to start looking at organic SEO strategies and how you can drive more traffic to your website, or just ensure that your website is completely optimized to be able to present itself in the best possible way to Google. So I'm going to go through a few items here, a few tips, tricks, and ideas that you can implement or work through, or at least have some greater knowledge around. If it makes more sense to reach out to us here at the Digital Squad, we can always coach you through some of these things and go from there. So I'm going to hit my my first slide here. So you may notice that you rank high for a particular keyword, but you're just not seeing the traffic coming through, which can be a bit frustrating, given that we don't have deep insight into the Google algorithm and how it's ranking and then how it perceives you. There are some tools, but obviously they're not going to share the nuances of their algorithms. So we've got to come up with sort of best practices here and what can be done to begin to improve this. So there could be a couple factors where if your page is ranking well, but you're just not seeing traffic coming through, it could be tied to two main factors, which are your title tag and your meta description. Google doesn't look at these as a ranking factor anymore, but it does present them to potential visitors to your website. So you want to make sure that you've crafted a title that is enticing to them, and meta description that is going to resonate with your potential visitor or customer, and grab them that way. So you want to make sure these titles and descriptions are as enticing as possible and grab the user's attention. There are a few other things you can do to make sure that these title tags and meta descriptions are positioned as best as possible. So you can use power words, as I was mentioning, and using power words like buy now, learn more, that kind of thing, get rich quick. Not a good one, but you get the idea. We'll grab the user's attention and definitely get them to your website, or at least to click through and see what it is your company is all about. It's also a good opportunity to make sure your USP is clear. USP is your unique selling proposition. So when it comes to that, you want to make sure that what's being presented to the user before they click through to your website is clear to them. And so you want to make sure that this is communicated well within your title tags and meta description. Demonstrating a clear benefit. So if you've got a product or service, it's always important to make sure that at this point, you could be as clear and concise as possible to make sure that the user understands the benefit of your product or service. And if they are enticed by this benefit, they're more than likely to click through to your content and experience your website. Aligning these title tags and meta descriptions with the search intent. And what that means is when somebody is searching within Google, they're usually typing things in that are usually in the form of a question, but making sure that what they're asking aligns well with what you're presenting. And that's what Google is ultimately trying to do here, is to make sure that it's aligning good businesses with good content for the best possible user experience that they can provide. And that's really what Google's trying to strive for. And so make sure that your title tags and meta descriptions are all done and fitting this format. And this can really help drive traffic to these well-performing pages, but aren't seeing that conversion for you. Now, sometimes people just don't click, and you may have all your title tags and meta descriptions all set up and positioned as best as you possibly can, and feel that they are presented in the best possible light and support your business and your products and services, but they're just not clicking through. So find your keywords that you're on the first page of, look for keywords with a low click-through rate, and then you can go and improve these titles and descriptions. And that's what I'm kind of going through here to make sure that you know where to look for these areas to update your pages. There are some tools you can use to help with this, since sometimes just searching within the Google space can be a bit daunting. There's a paid service called Ahrefs, which is, I think it's about $99 or $100 per month. And, depending upon your budgets, this can definitely give you some deep insight for your SEO and find the pages that are performing well, but have a low click-through. And you can look at what organic keywords are ranking well for your company and that sort of thing. So, if you've got the budget and this has become a top priority for you, then it may be worthwhile taking a look at. There are also some free tools which are always nice to get into and give you some minor coaching through some of these metrics. So one is called Uber Suggest, and you can just drop your website URL into this tool, and they'll return a report for you and how you're ranking and how you're looking within Google's eyes. The other website that I'll note here is called SEOsitecheckup.com. They are a paid service as well, but they do offer a one-time free audit of your site and will give you some pretty good metrics and insight into how you're performing and be able to shed some light on maybe some of these highly performing pages, but they don't have the click-through rate. So this is another good tool to use as well. As a benchmark, the average click-through rate for a #1 spot in Google search is about 27%, and the #2 spot is about 15%. Now these are for unbranded keywords, and depending upon how your SEO is set up, you may have some 1 to 3 spot rank, which is fantastic. But I just thought I'd give you some benchmark here so you can decide how you're performing and where the opportunities lie if you're underperforming based on this benchmark. So thought I'd share that data with you as well. Add additional relevant internal links within your website to other pages within your website. Internal backlinks. Why is this important? Because they aid in the flow of authority around your website. This can definitely help you in Google search, because when Google is looking at your content, it's reviewing all your pages. And when there's links to other content within that page, then Google can use that to aid in its understanding of your business and the content that's relevant to other content. So anytime you've got the ability to add additional links within your content, always do so. Many believe these internal links do influence Google rank, which have been confirmed by various Google staff experts. And so it's something that's very easy for you to implement and start to bump up in your page rank. You want to find your underperforming pages and determine the relevant pages you'd like to add additional internal links to targeting your underperforming page. There is actually a great service that Google does offer, a little trick, I suppose, where within the address bar, you can type in site : and whatever your domain name is, and then double quote the topic of the page you want to boost. What Google will do is return a complete list based off of your website of all the relevant pages that have that particular topic or keyword included. So you can use this list to start working towards updating your content, linking to other pages that reference that particular topic. And this is a great way to be able to come up with a strategy that doesn't involve you reading all the content on your website and create links that way. So this is a great little tool, and obviously it's free. And so it's a great spot to start when you're looking to create additional links within your website, which, like I mentioned, does help your page rank and Google understand who you are and the products and services that you're selling or promoting. You can also use the tools I talked about earlier, Ahrefs, Ubersuggest. Now, WordPress is quite a popular content publishing platform for websites and content management system. And I believe it's around, I think it's 46%. It's powering 46% of the world's websites right now. So it's definitely got a large market share for popularity, and a lot of people are on WordPress. So if you are one of those that have your site powered by WordPress, there's additional tool you can add in via a plugin. There actually are a couple. There's one called Yoast SEO, which is sort of the original plugin for SEO for WordPress. There is the new kid on the block is called RankMath, and it's one that I always suggest. I find it's a little bit lighter on your website, and it offers a little more integration into some deep insights with your Google services. So with RankMath, you can actually connect to your Search Console, you can connect to your Google Analytics, and it takes the data that it's seeing on your WordPress website and mashes it up with data that it's interpreting from your Search Console and Google Analytics, and can give you some pretty valuable insights on how your content's performing and how it's positioned with Google. They've got some neat new additions they've just come up with, where when you're on a particular page, it will actually recommend other pages you should be linking to through their AI engine. So this gives you a much simpler way to determine links that you should be adding to a page when you're creating a new blog or updating content or those sorts of things. So I would highly recommend looking into adding RankMath to your website. If you're not doing all of the content updating and publishing within your admin, and you've got somebody that does this for you, I'd connect with them to make sure that they've got this there, and they can start to give you some insights back as to how certain things are performing. If you've got pages that are already performing well, then obviously adding links to those better performing pages will produce quicker and better results for you, because Google is already ranking that content well. So these can be great pages to identify. And if there's opportunities to link to other pages that you'd like to rank better, but aren't currently ranking well, you can definitely use these pages that are currently ranking well as a bit of a catalyst for the pages that aren't. And this can be done through adding relevant links to the pages that aren't performing well. Backlinks to dead pages. I'm sure anyone that's on this webinar today has probably heard of backlinks and SEO. If you haven't, then don't worry. It's a pretty straightforward concept where backlinks are just essentially links that refer to your website from another website that you don't control or own, or a third-party website. You want to review your backlinks and ensure pages that they link to are active. It's difficult to track all of the third-party websites that may be linking into your website. And as businesses change, grow, evolve, there may be pages that you've updated or that you have removed because they're no longer relevant. You know, there's various reasons why you may have removed a particular piece of content. What can happen is that there may be a website that is linking to that particular page. And when you remove that page, it creates a dead end for Google. So you've got this great backlink that's very valuable to your SEO strategy, driving traffic to your website, but that page doesn't exist anymore. So why is this important? If your backlinks are broken, then you lose the page rank authority. The nice thing is that the fix is relatively easy. When you look at a report, and again, there are many tools you can use to determine where your backlinks are coming from and what they're linking to. And like I mentioned earlier, Ahrefs, Ubersuggest, they can all give you reports on your backlinks. And essentially what you can do is go and review that list of backlinks, and they'll let you know what page they're linking to on your website, and just click through that and make sure that those particular backlinks are properly resolving on your website, and that they aren't broken. If they are broken, there's a couple things you can do. You can just reinstate the dead page, republish it, make it active again. And if the page was outdated, which is why you removed it to begin with, you can just update that content to make it relevant again. If the content just isn't relevant anymore, then what you can do is implement what's called a 301 redirect. And what the 301 redirect is it tells Google that the page no longer exists, but here is some content that has replaced this particular page, or that is somewhat relevant to that page. And so when Google comes into your website, finds that there's a 301 redirect there, it follows that redirect to the new page, and it will review that page, and you don't lose rank. Because when the page becomes dead, like I mentioned earlier, you lose that page rank authority. So implementing this redirect is important so that Google knows where the new content lives and exists. Refreshing your content. Sometimes content that used to perform well ceases to do so. And this is a great opportunity for you to start updating content that you're seeing traffic drop in. A lot of times people will set up their about page when they launch their new website. However, they never go back and refresh it or update it. And so this content becomes stale, and Google knows that you haven't updated it in a while, and it just stops crawling that particular page. So it's always important to make sure that you're updating all pages on your website on a regular basis, and to not neglect or let pages that probably don't need updating that often. Always make sure you've got a refresh going on there, and that will help Google recrawl your site more often. Another great strategy is to take a look at articles and blogs regularly. Developing this sort of content takes a lot of time and effort. And if you have an article or a blog strategy, publishing new articles, that's awesome. And it's a great way to get new content out there and to keep Google interested. But I'm sure you'll also understand that there's a lot of time and effort And if you're not publishing these articles yourself, money involved to do so. So it can be great to take a look at older blog content and just provide updates. So you can create a new blog, but I always recommend taking a look at least one older blog and reviving it as well. And this is a very simple way to refresh content and get Google interested and keeping them interested in what it is that the messages you're trying to get out there. Look at your page's traffic report, and if you see a dive, that means it's primed for an update. And you can do this using your Google Analytics. I hope that most people know how to get into their Google Analytics and they have Google Analytics installed on their website. And at the very least, take a look at a monthly report to make sure that you're seeing growth in the right direction. Within Google, you can look at the site content report, and it will give you a rank based on how all your pages are performing. And if you've got certain key pillar content pages that you want to ensure are always performing well, and you notice that they do take a dip, then you'll want to take a look at those pages, and the easiest and simplest starting point or solution to make sure that you update and refresh the content on those pages. And in doing so, you will start to see that page crawl back up in rank, since Google will realize that you've updated the content and will begin to rank it better. Unlinked mentions. I'm sure everyone's been out there browsing the web and notice a website that mentions your business or company. However, the publisher neglected to give you a link back to your website. So it's great to see content out there about your company. However, it's far more complicated for Google to understand that you've been mentioned on a third party and it's not able to find your website or your business or what it is that you're doing. So this is a great opportunity for you to reach out to this particular publisher. It may be a blogger, it may be a news article, could be in many different forms, but reach out to them. And this could be done just in a nice email, and just ask if they can create a link for you, and indicate that you've got a recent relevant article. It's even better sometimes, and then they get even a more detailed link into your website and your content, and this then provides Google with some further insight into the publisher's article that they put out there and the relevancy to you and your business. And this strategy helps you, but also helps the publisher as well, because it's improving your rank authority between both websites. You can also use this method for cold outreaches, and you can, if you notice that there's a particular piece of content that you see out there in just your general browsing of the web that is relevant to your business, or you happen to catch a news article that sort of is in line with the content that you like to publish or the business and services that you offer, it never hurts to just do a nice email outreach, find out who the publisher is, send them a note, and just share a link from your website that you feel is relevant to the article they published, and just say that you'd appreciate a link back, and you'd be happy to return that favor. And like I mentioned earlier, this mutually benefits both businesses and organizations in their SEO strategies. So there's really no downside to anyone. The only challenge to you is that this can be a bit of a timely strategy, not timely, sorry, a bit of a resource heavy strategy for you to undertake. And if you're a small business owner with wearing many hats, then this can maybe doesn't fit into your daily routine, but there is benefit to it, and it can drive and deliver traffic. So thought I'd share it. Content gaps. sometimes you'll notice that your competitors are ranking well for a particular piece of content that you're not addressing on your site. This is called a content gap. And you can begin to plug this gap by adding content to your site in either a new page or post form. And then monitor these results to make sure that you're then starting to rank for this piece of content. And it's always great to lurk in on what your competitors are doing in the SEO space. And a lot of the new SEO features that are being built into some of the tools like Ubersuggest and Ahrefs is they have competitive reports that you can run where you can add in the domains of your top 3, top 5 competitors. And when you drop those into the competitive analysis report, these tools can start to expose the content gaps that are existing and allow you to give you some deeper insight into these particular gaps and start to fill those in. And you can also see sort of how your competitors are ranking for certain keywords, and you may notice that maybe you're not ranking for those keywords. So it's always a great idea to be able to look at that and chase down what your competitors are doing to make sure that you're staying competitive as well. Perhaps you may just have an article that's just dated and needs to be updated to address the changing landscape. Obviously, that's an easy win. So if you have an article that is somewhat relevant to what you're noticing is a content gap, then the easiest thing would be just to go and revise that content with content that is relevant with your other competitors. And this is a very simple way to start to chase that down and fill these gaps. Not only will this work towards improving your page rank, it will also serve to better your topical relevance. Competitor dead links. When browsing a competitor's site, you may come across a broken link. And if you have a relevant article they could link to, then you can reach out. And you can reach out with something like, hey, I noticed a link to brokenlink.com, and that post is no longer there. We have something similar, and obviously you'd cite the link to your website, and you can suggest that they swap out that link. And this is a very simple way, again, to create backlinks from relevant third-party websites to your website and vice versa. And like I mentioned before, this does help you in growing your page rank for this particular piece of content, but it also helps the other website too. So you're both able to grow together, and as much as they are a competitor, it's something that you can easily help both you sort of move up in the Google ranks. So it is an interesting strategy that you can look to implement if you stumble across something that is broken. And again, you'd be using and understanding these sort of reports using a service like Ubersuggest or Ahrefs, and looking at backlinks and broken link strategies for your competitors' websites. Image theft. Images are often stolen and not properly attributed to the source. If you have popular images on your site, you may have an opportunity to link build here. This happens a lot with photographers, and even if you're a business that has a great budget and spends a lot of time and effort in developing great photography, I'm sure you've noticed that sometimes your images pop up in areas that you didn't approve, and that particular source didn't connect with you to get approval for this particular use of this image. The nice thing is you can turn a bad thing good. And in doing so, you can reach out to the website that essentially stole your image, and ask to have proper attribution linked back to you. And in doing so, you're working on a pretty strong backlinking strategy here to your website, and you're taking a bad situation and making it good. The nice thing is there's a tool out there to be able to help with this sort of problem. The tool is called pixie.com. Pixie is a free tool that can scan the web for instances of your photography. Then reach out requesting a backlink to your website once you determine the websites that are using your photos, but not having permission to use them, or not properly attributing the photo to you and linking back to you. So Pixie is a free tool. I'd encourage you to use it if you feel like that your images might potentially being used elsewhere without your permission. And so you can go check that out and use this as an opportunity to build on your backlinking program. Ben, do you ever have any problems with image use, or even some of your video work that people have grabbed onto and not sort of properly attributed back to you or your clients possibly?
Luckily have not really had any issues with that.
Oh, no?
Yeah, surprising.
Okay,
So,
well, it does happen out there, and this is a tool that can be used to sort of take that and spin that around for you.
well, and yeah, that's the thing. I say it hasn't really happened because I haven't really looked. I bet if I read it, I might find something. I don't know. There
you go. Well, it's a great little tool, and I encourage you to take a look. And even if it's just for interest's sake, it's something that's of value and could be part of your SEO suite of tools. The other side to SEO, most of the strategies I talk about in the previous slides are organic strategies that really only take time and effort, with the exception of maybe some budget tied to a premium SEO tool to dive a bit deeper into some of the strategies. But for the most part, they're all organic strategies and something that you can implement that really only takes your time or paying of someone else's time to dive into them and start to help build a stronger organic SEO strategy. One thing that can't be ignored here is the pay-per-click side of driving traffic to your website. Pay-per-click is a strong SEO strategy, given that it allows you to run ads against particular keywords and content that can be relevant to your website. Google does account for your paid clicks and will factor this traffic towards your organic rank. And it's really the only surefire way that you can ensure that you start to rank or start to boost your authority for certain types of content. So it's always a good idea to dedicate some budget to a PPC program, whether or not it's pay-per-click through Facebook, through Google, or whatever channel you decide you want to do this in. But Google is, I would recommend using Google paid ads, because Google does take this into account when you're driving traffic from an ad to content on your website. Google does recognize that particular traffic coming in as a qualified link and will look at the content you've got tied to that ad and subsequently will begin to rank you for that, or at least include that in its algorithm when it comes to improving your rank for that particular content. So once you've developed your key pillar content or understand sort of the areas that you want to drive traffic to, then you'll want to make sure that you're driving traffic to that particular that particular content, and you've got a strong pay-per-click program tied to that. With that in mind, a lot of people will ask around budget. And, for this particular strategy, I usually say, put whatever budget you can afford towards this. The more you spend, the more return you'll get on that. But I usually like to start it around sort of anywhere $350 to $500 or more. Ben, I'm not sure, what do you sort of recommend on the PPC side of things when it comes to starting budgets, with in mind that it's more about supporting your SEO and your pillar content versus sort of driving traffic to your products and services, which unfortunately can be a bit tough to start to rank for, because Google just doesn't like those types of pages very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's always such a hard question to answer too, right? Of like, how much money should we spend? But I mean, I think, if we talk about like a localized audience, so like you're not advertising to all of Canada, you're maybe advertising to like a few towns and cities, and maybe in the South Georgian Bay area as an example. You could get away with maybe like even as little as $100 a month, I would say, to like, do some of that testing, right? And see what's working and what's not. But certainly, yeah, you'd be better off upping it, of course. But if you're just kind of, getting a feeler, even and learning the platform too, right? $100, good way to kind of dip your toes in and get started.
The other great thing around paid as well is it really gives you some deep metric and insights on certain keywords and search terms that people are actually searching to find your content. So, sometimes you may be targeting certain keywords within your pages of your content or articles or blogs, and finding that you're just not seeing the traffic to those particular pages. Running some paid campaigns around driving traffic to those pages will start to shed light on the search terms people are actually using to find your content. And the Google Ads dashboard does a great job to illustrate what those terms are and how people are finding your content. So, you may find that you thought some keywords that people are using to find you were driving traffic to your pillar content, when really they're actually searching for something different when they're finding that content. So it's always offering some great insight as well into your campaigns and what's converting to those pages and what people are actually searching for. And always making sure that, when people are searching, it's usually in the form of a question. So for any of your content that you have on your website, it's always important to make sure you're answering questions, especially within blogs. A lot of the content strategy around blogging now has changed quite a bit with this last Google algorithm update, where Google isn't as interested in long form essay style content writing anymore. They want more question answer. And then, so if you can address the question answer quite early on in your blog content, you will begin to find that this will rank better with Google. And then it improves the user experience, because when people are finding that particular blog content, they can get that question answer dealt with quite quickly, and then they can decide whether or not they want to read the remainder of that article or not. So it's something that from an experience perspective, it's what Google's trying to push forward, and definitely a strong strategy as it relates to your blog content. And when I mentioned earlier about refreshing content, that can be a key strategy to doing that, where if you have a lot of long form essay style blog content that you posted in years past or even months past, you can go in and rework that particular content to be more question answer, and you will find that Google will start to rank that content better. That is sort of what I had planned from a slide perspective, and did want to open up for questions, since I thought I might stir some ideas and thoughts, and have some questions from people that are here, and thought I'd kind of keep it kind of open now around questions you may have about SEO, and maybe even some of the topics and ideas that I put out there. that have got the wheels turning.
Yeah, so we already have some in the chat.
Great.
I thought we'd start there and throw one at you from Guy who says, who asks, how do you locate the best and worst performing pages of your website? He's suggesting or asking, like, is it Yoast SEO, or like do they have any tools, or RankMath? But ultimately, like, how would we describe or point people in the right direction to find the best and worst performing pages?
Yeah, for sure. So the SEO tools I mentioned, like Ahref or Ubersuggest, will definitely be able to shed some light on what pages are doing well for you. You can also use your Google Search Console, which is a free tool, and it will show a list of your pages that are performing well in that sense. The other tool you can use is Google Analytics has the content report that you can look at as well, and that will show you some good insights as to what pages are performing well and which ones aren't performing well. And then you can also look at, if you look at your search results in Google Console and what people are searching for, but you're not seeing that click through into your content, then that's where you want to start to potentially improve the CTA around your meta and your title tags and meta description, which will help you start to grow that area out. And I'd probably say the best starting point to start to use a free tool that will give you sort of your best insight is likely Ubersuggest, because you can go in and check that on a regular basis. The SEO site checkup tool, sitecheckup.com, I believe it is great, but they only allow you one audit. Once you've done that, they want you to sign up. So I would suggest that Ubersuggest is going to give you the deepest insight there. And then RankMath, if you are on WordPress, will definitely give you some even greater insight into your admin, and will let you know sort of what pages are ranking best for which terms, and if you've got some pages that aren't ranking well but are that don't have a lot of traffic but are ranking well, then they'll shed some light on that too. And RankMath's new AI engine is quite interesting and quite spectacular. And so if you are on WordPress, I'd say it's probably, if you don't have that plugin installed already, it's a must. It also helps you with your schema, which is becoming more and more important in Google and SEO. So what schema does is it allows Google to better understand the structure of your content. So if you've got a blog that is sort of article based, then you can define that as article based content, and that means one thing to Google. If you've got a blog that's more news, then you can define that as news, and what that does is that indicates to Google the structure of the content and the theme of that content, and Google's able to take that and make it more relevant within their particular search. So you can set that up and define that within RankMath, and I'd encourage you to do so. They just also updated video as well, so if you've got a lot of video content, you're able to define that within the schema in RankMath as well. And again, it's all about just telling and painting the best picture possible and the best story possible to Google. And when you can do that in a way that is structured and well-defined, then that just helps Google become that much more knowledgeable and insightful into your business and what you're doing. And I'd encourage you to do that. And the RankMath setup is pretty straightforward. They do have a wizard that you can walk through, and they sort of coach you along the way. Although there are some more advanced pieces to it, and I'd encourage you to work with someone that has set that up before, or like I mentioned on early on here, you can reach out to us here at the squad, and we can work you through that that particular setup for you as well. RankMath also helps you define your local presence too, which again is part of schema. But again, it helps Google anchor you from a geo perspective as to where you're located and what you're doing and where you're doing it. So you can go in and define your bricks and mortar address if you have one. You can define your hours of operation. You can define the best possible email to reach you at, your phone number. And essentially, it's almost like a Google My Business built within your website that Google is also able to use that data to marry it to other particular channels that you're connected to, Facebook, Google My Business, your website. And in doing so, Google's able to triangulate that data about you and begin to understand you and your business better.
Nice. So quick follow-up question there. Would you suggest that let's say someone on WordPress, should they use Yoast SEO and RankMath, or RankMath kind of does it all?
No, RankMath does it all. So,
okay.
So what you'll do is, if you're currently using Yoast, I don't want to say Yoast is not a good tool, because they are the OG, and they are the ones that kind of came to it first and have done some great work and that sort of thing. And they just launched a tool or an app for Shopify as well. So Yoast is definitely growing. They did get purchased by a large conglomerate, and I think it's the company that owns like Bluehost and HostGator and things like that. So they are owned by a much larger firm now, which can be good, can be bad. But if you're using Yoast now, obviously it'll give you some great insight. And I don't want to say, that you should just jump ship immediately if it's working for you. What you can do is you can add RankMath, keep Yoast active within your WordPress panel, and RankMath can actually import all the data that you've defined with Yoast. So if you've got your keywords set and defined, and you've got all the other technical aspects of Yoast set up for your website, that it would, if you were to switch, if this tool didn't exist to be able to import that content over, you'd have to go through and define all your keywords and everything all over again for all your entire website. So RankMath realized that that Yoast had a fairly large market share, so they built in a tool to be able to import or port that data over to RankMath. So to answer that question, you don't need both. I would pick one or the other. And but if you do decide you want to switch to RankMath for more detailed insight and even that connection to Google services, which is huge, then I'd suggest doing that and making that jump over.
Cool. Moving along, meta tags or keywords to the back end of a website. Do they need to be in a special format? Is the question.
Special format. Well, if you're using WordPress or some sort of SEO plugin, there are some restrictions around the number of characters that you want to have in your title tag and the number of characters you have in your description. So there are some restrictions there. If you're using RankMath or a tool like Yoast, when you add in your focused keyword for that particular pillar content, or for that content, even if it's not pillar, it will return coaching notes around that particular focused keyword. So when you put that keyword in, it will give you a number of things that you need to optimize within your content to be able to rank for that keyword. The usual suspects or the basic SEO setup, if you've added in your focused keywords, would be to ensure that those focused keywords are present within your title tag and your description. And those focus keywords are also added to your H1 tag, as well as the intro paragraph on your particular page. So you'll want to make sure those keywords are present throughout, and you also want to make sure that you're not being overzealous with the use of those keywords. So you don't want to what's called keyword stuffing on your page. So you don't want to, for example, put your keyword in in every single paragraph and every other sentence, that will negatively affect your SEO. So it needs to still have a natural flow within your content. But that would be that structure can you can use a tool like RankMath or Yoast to be able to give you that feedback report on how you're ranking, and then the overall readability of that particular page itself. They can give you some insight around how easy or not that is to read. And you also want to make sure that if you've got any images on that page, that you've got the keyword tied to your alt tag on images. And again, it's just all about sort of trying to illustrate to Google in the best way possible, in the most natural way possible, that the content on this page is relevant for those particular keywords.
Sweet. And then bounce rate. Someone was asking about, guy was asking about bounce rate. Does that play a role in your page ranking in terms of your performance, how that's playing?
To my knowledge, I don't believe Google looks or is able to determine that a high bounce rate is going to affect your ranking factor. A high bounce rate in general is just of concern for your website. So if you are seeing a high bounce rate, then obviously your content is not resonating, and it's important to make sure that you take a look at it and try to understand potentially why it's not resonating. So yeah, I think just in general terms, not necessarily specific to SEO, but in general terms, you always want to be cognizant of your bounce rate and making sure that it's not high.
Perfect. And then what about certain website systems or hosts, I guess? So for example, a website on WordPress or a website on, I guess, like Shopify, or even then hosted by GoDaddy or hosted by a different company. How does that affect the SEO?
Definitely. So when Google launched their Web Core Vitals, performance became a factor, and it's probably been the most challenging factor for most small businesses out there. And so making sure that you are on a high performing web server is probably the simplest and easiest win. There are shared platforms which are not good, and if you're on a GoDaddy or a HostGator or one of those plans that are sort of their entry-level plan that you're probably paying $5 to maybe $10 per month on, I'd suggest that would be a one item you'd probably want to go and address and likely move to a better performing server. You can do everything that I've mentioned in this particular webinar, as well as every other best practice around SEO, and have the best optimized website possible out there. I like to always refer to if you can have a Ferrari, but if your tires are flat, you're not going to go very fast. And so when it comes to hosting and providers, you want to make sure that you've got your tires nice and inflated. And I'd always recommend looking. There's a lot of good articles out there around good WordPress hosts versus not good WordPress hosts, and do your research there. I always find that, especially in the small business world, it's worth spending the money on a managed host versus unmanaged. And with managed, that means that you get your updates performed automatically. You've got a company that usually has some WordPress experience, and I'll speak to WordPress specifically for this. It's one that I know best. And then you know, a lot of the really good guys in the space now are all hosting everything on the Google Cloud platform, which is a top tier server network that is top notch, and obviously it's owned by Google. And you know, I don't know if there's any relationships to that in performance and things like that, but Google is definitely hooked into the main backbones, and having your site there, and also having your domain registered with Google domains versus other domains. There can be some latency between the resolution of that domain to your website. Essentially, every website is set up as an IP. And so there is a small translation that occurs from the IP to your friendly domain name. And there's some latency that can occur from registrars like GoDaddy and others that may be housing your domain right now. If you move it to Google Domains, you might find that latency will be reduced. So performance is top notch. The one thing that I will caution people around is if you go to do a page speed test, that's a website that Google has. You can just Google page speed test, or you can just go to web.dev. It's another Google tool you can go to, and you can run a quick performance test on your website. You doing that test is based on lab results, not based on real data. And so it can give you in sort of general terms how you're performing, but those lab results are always going to return a lower score than actual data. And if you're running a WordPress site, you can add the Google Site Kit plugin, which is a plugin developed by Google that allows you to connect your Google Analytics, your Search Console, and page speed. And what's great about it is that you can actually run real-time data against Lighthouse, and Lighthouse is the framework Google uses for their performance reporting, among other things. And so you can actually look at the lab data versus the actual data. And in most cases, the actual data will paint a better picture for you. So it's worth looking at it, because I've definitely chatted with a bunch of people that have gone and run the lab data results, and things just don't look good. And so sometimes things aren't as bad as they may seem, but quality of host is always top notch, and always a much easier win than trolling through an entire website and starting to defer scripts and optimize images and a bunch of minify files and that sort of thing. It's a lot of work. There are tools for that too, but it's a lot more work than doing a quick switch from a hosting provider. That can definitely give you a nice bump in performance for sure.
Nice. I think that's it for questions that were at 11 o'clock. So if you want to hit the next slide, we'll just wrap up real quick to say that, yeah, if you have any additional questions, definitely book a consultation with the Digital Service Squad. We are still around probably into February, yeah, definitely into February. And here's where you can find us, enterprisecenter.ca/digital service squad. And we've got our booking calendar there, and you can book a consultation specifically about SEO and any other questions you might have. We are here to help. So thanks, Kit. That was awesome. Very informative, and I even made some notes, things that I need to do. And I'm really looking forward to putting that into practice. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.